I'm Maya Chen, and my brother Derek has been the family golden child for as long as I can remember. While he got business school at Stanford fully funded by our parents, I got a community college catalog and a lecture about realistic expectations for girls. When Derek graduated and joined a mid-sized tech consulting firm called Apex Solutions, our parents threw him a party. When I graduated with my associate's degree 2 years later, they forgot. I found out they'd used my college fund, the one Grandma had set up specifically for me, to buy Derek a luxury condo as a career launch gift. "You don't need a fund," Mom had said dismissively. "You'll just get married anyway." I was 20 years old, furious and broke. But I was also done asking them for anything. I started working 3 jobs: bookkeeping for small businesses during the day, coding freelance projects at night, and weekend shifts at a tech startup's customer service line. I slept 4 hours a night. I ate ramen. I lived in a studio apartment with 2 roommates and learned to smile when Derek posted photos of his waterfront condo. At family dinners, Derek would dominate every conversation with tales from Apex Solutions. Our parents hung on every word. "We landed the Meridian account," he'd announce proudly. "That's my brilliant son." Dad would beam. When I'd mention landing a new freelance client, Mom would pat my hand. "That's nice, dear. Derek, tell us more about your promotion." Derek became Director of Client Services at 28. The family celebration lasted 3 days. I just secured my 5th corporate bookkeeping contract, quintupling my income, but nobody asked. What they didn't know was that one of those small businesses I did bookkeeping for was actually a venture capital analyst who'd noticed something. I didn't just balance books. I understood the business. I could read patterns. I could predict cash flow problems before they happened. "You're wasted on bookkeeping," Marcus told me over coffee. "Have you ever thought about investment analysis?" I had. I just couldn't afford the certifications. "Work for me," he offered. "I'll pay for your certifications. You keep doing what you're doing, but you'll learn the investment side." That conversation changed everything. For the next 3 years, I worked for Marcus's boutique investment firm while my family thought I was still doing bookkeeping for local shops. I wasn't lying, I just wasn't elaborating. Marcus taught me everything: due diligence, market analysis, portfolio construction, risk assessment. I was good at it. Really good. Good enough that by year 2 Marcus made me a junior partner. "You found 3 unicorns before the VCs did," he said, signing the partnership papers. "That's not luck. That's talent." By year 3 I was managing a $40 million portfolio. I drove a used Honda. I lived in the same studio apartment. I wore thrift store clothes to family dinners. Because I was building something and I didn't need my family's opinions, or their interference, while I did it. Derek, meanwhile, had climbed to VP of Operations at Apex Solutions. The company had grown substantially, landing major government contracts and corporate clients. Our parents talked about him like he'd personally built Microsoft. "Derek's company is worth almost $200 million now," Dad would announce proudly at every gathering. I'd smile and nod. What I didn't say was that I'd been watching Apex Solutions carefully. Very carefully. When I turned 30, Marcus called me into his office with an unusual proposition. "Apex Solutions is looking for growth capital," he said. "They're offering preferred shares to avoid going public. The founder wants to retire, and the executive team is looking to buy him out." I'd reviewed their financials. Solid revenue, strong client retention, excellent market position. But something else caught my attention. Their shareholder structure was messy. The founder held 40%, executives held 35% in scattered pieces, and 25% was distributed among early angel investors who'd long since stopped paying attention. What if we could acquire the founder's stake and the angel investors' shares? I asked Marcus. He smiled. "I was hoping you'd see that." We spent 6 months quietly buying. The founder was thrilled to sell his 40% stake to what he thought was just another investment firm. The angel investors, most of whom had written off their early investments as dead money, were happy to liquidate at a premium. By the time we finished, I personally held 43% of Apex Solutions. Marcus's firm held another 30%. Together, we controlled 73% of the company's voting shares. Derek had no idea. Nobody did. The transactions were structured through holding companies and trusts. My name appeared nowhere in the public filings, Just layers of corporate entities. I stayed quiet. I watched. I waited. The explosion came at Mom's 60th birthday party. Derek had recently been promoted to Chief Operating Officer, and he couldn't stop talking about it. The party was essentially a celebration of his career, with Mom's birthday as a convenient excuse. My company just signed a $50 million contract with the Department of Defense, Derek announced to the entire party. Largest deal in Apex history. Everyone applauded. Dad raised his glass. To my son, the executive. I was standing by the dessert table when Derek approached with two of his colleagues, both board members I recognized from shareholder documents. Maya's here. Derek said with exaggerated enthusiasm. Everyone, this is my little sister. She does. What is it you do again? Bookkeeping. I work in investment management, I said simply. Derek laughed. She calls herself a CEO on LinkedIn. It's adorable. She manages her own little consulting thing. His colleague Richard Chen, board member and 3% shareholder, smiled politely. Entrepreneurship is admirable. Entrepreneurship, Derek snorted. She has a website and a business card. I have 300 employees and $200 million in annual revenue. There's a difference between playing business and actually running one. The other colleague, Patricia Moore, another board member with 2% shares, looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Stop this yo fantasy, Derek laughed louder, pulling out his phone to show them my LinkedIn profile. Look, she calls herself an entrepreneur. Founder and managing partner of Chen Capital Ventures. It's like a kid with a lemonade stand calling herself a beverage distribution executive. Everyone around us laughed. Mom giggled. Dad shook his head with amused disappointment. I checked my watch. The notification on my phone read, board meeting scheduled. Tomorrow 9 a.m. Agenda, shareholder structure review and new governance protocols. I'd scheduled that meeting myself through Marcus 3 weeks ago. The timing was perfect. You're right, Derek, I said calmly. There is a difference between playing business and running one. You'll understand tomorrow. He wasn't listening. He was too busy showing my LinkedIn to more guests, pointing out what he called my delusions of grandeur. I quietly left the party. I had a board meeting to prepare for. That night I laid out everything on my dining room table. Stock certificates, transfer documents, trust agreements, corporate filings, 6 months of acquisition paperwork, all meticulously documented and legally airtight. Marcus called at 11 p.m. You're sure about tomorrow? He just spent an hour mocking me in front of his board members, I said. I'm sure. The board's going to panic when they realize the shareholder structure changed, Marcus warned. Derek's going to lose his mind. Good, I said. He's had 3 years to ask me about my actual career. He chose mockery instead. Tomorrow he learns why that was a mistake. I didn't sleep much. Instead, I reviewed Apex Solutions bylaws, shareholder agreements and corporate governance documents. I knew them better than Derek did. I knew them better than anyone on the board did. Because when you own 73% of a company's voting shares, you don't just have power. You have total control. At 6 a.m., I dressed in a Tom Ford suit I'd bought specifically for this moment. Professional. Powerful. Undeniable. Marcus met me outside Apex Solutions headquarters at 8:45 a.m. Ready? He asked. I've been ready for 3 years. We walked into the building together. The receptionist looked confused when I signed in, glancing at my name. Ms. Chen? I don't have you on the board meeting list. Check again, Marcus said smoothly. Chen Capital Ventures. Majority shareholder. Her face went pale as she scrolled through her computer. I'll notify the boardroom immediately. The boardroom went silent when Marcus and I walked in. Derek was mid-sentence, presenting quarterly projections when he saw me. His expression shifted from confusion to irritation. Maya? What are you doing here? This is a closed board meeting. Sit down, Derek, Marcus said calmly. Richard Chen, the board member from last night's party, stood up. I'm sorry, but this meeting is for board members and senior executives only. And majority shareholders, I said, placing my briefcase on the table. Which is why I'm here. The board chairman, Robert Martinez, frowned. I'm sorry, Ms. Chen, but our shareholder records show outdated records. Marcus interrupted, sliding a folder across the table. These are the updated shareholder documents, filed with the state 3 months ago. All legally binding and properly executed. Patricia Moore opened the folder. Her face went white. This says, Chen Capital Ventures owns 43% of voting shares. Marcus Chen Investments owns another 30%. 73% total, I said calmly. Controlling interest. The room erupted. That's impossible. Derek shouted. The founder owned 40%. The angels owned 25%. The founder retired and sold his stake, I said. The angel investors liquidated at a premium. All transactions were properly documented and filed. All completely legal. Who the hell is Chen Capital Ventures? Derek demanded. I smiled. Me. I'm Chen Capital Ventures. I'm the founder and managing partner you were mocking last night. I'm also your majority shareholder. Derek's face went from red to pale. You're lying. You do bookkeeping. You can't afford. I haven't done bookkeeping in 6 years, I said quietly. I've been working in venture capital and private equity. Marcus is my mentor and business partner. Together, we manage approximately $340 million in assets. Apex Solutions is our largest single holding. Robert Martinez was frantically reading the documents. These are legitimate. The filing dates go back 8 months. How did we not know? Because you weren't paying attention, Marcus said. The transactions were structured through holding companies, all standard practice. Everything was filed publicly. You just never looked. Derek stood frozen, his quarterly presentation forgotten. Last night, I continued, you told your board members that I was playing that I was living in a fantasy. You showed them my LinkedIn and laughed about my credentials. I pulled out my phone, opening the Chen Capital Ventures website. Our portfolio page listed 15 companies, including 3 that had gone public and 2 recent exits totaling $180 million. This is my portfolio. These are real companies with real valuations. 3 of them are worth more than Apex Solutions. Patricia Moore was scrolling through her tablet. Chen Capital Ventures is listed as a top-tier boutique investment firm. They were profiled in Forbes last year. Page 47, I confirmed. The article about emerging fund managers to watch. I gave the interview remotely because I was in Singapore closing a $90 million deal. Derek finally found his voice. This doesn't mean you can just. Actually, it does, Robert Martinez interrupted, his face grim. With 73% voting shares, Ms. Chen and Mr. Chen have controlling interest. They can approve or reject any major decision. They can replace board members. They can even replace executive leadership. The room went silent. I'm not here to replace anyone, I said calmly. I'm here to establish the actual power structure. Derek, you're CEO of a company I control. That's fine. You're good at your job. But you need to understand something. I'm not playing CEO of my company. I am CEO. And I'm the majority owner of yours. Derek slumped into his chair. His carefully constructed presentation slides still glowed on the screen behind him. Q3 projections, presented by Derek Chen, Chief Operating Officer. How long have you owned this much? He whispered. 8 months, I said. I've been in every board meeting through Marcus as our representative. I've approved every major decision you've made. I've reviewed every contract you've signed, including that Defense Department deal you were bragging about last night. Why? Derek's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell us? Because you never asked, I said simply. In 3 years you never once asked what I actually did for work. You assumed. You mocked. You made me the punchline of jokes at every family gathering. Mom and Dad think I'm a failure because you told them I was. I didn't. You absolutely did, I said firmly. Every time you dominated the conversation with your achievements, every time you brushed off my career as cute, every time you positioned yourself as the successful sibling and me as the disappointing one, you built that narrative. Richard Chen spoke quietly. Miss Chen, what happens now? Now. Business continues as normal, I said. Derek remains COO. The executive team stays in place. You've built a strong company and I have no interest in disrupting that. But we're implementing new governance protocols. I opened my briefcase and distributed packets to each board member. These outline the new reporting structure. All major decisions over $5 million require majority shareholder approval. All executive compensation packages require board vote with shareholder input. And we're adding 2 board seats. One for me, one for Marcus. You can't just, Derek started. I can, I said calmly. 73% voting control means I absolutely can. But I'm choosing to do this collaboratively because, despite your behavior, I want this company to succeed. It's my largest investment. Patricia Moore was reading through the new protocols. These are actually reasonable. More oversight but not micromanagement. I'm an investor, not an operator, I said. I trust the team Derek's built. I don't trust decision-making without accountability, which is what happened when the shareholder structure was fragmented. Derek looked broken. The powerful executive from last night, the one who'd mocked my career in front of his colleagues, was gone. In his place sat a man realizing his little sister controlled his entire professional world. What about Mom and Dad? He asked quietly. What about them? Are you going to tell them? I considered this. That depends entirely on you, Derek. If you'd like to continue pretending I'm a failure doing bookkeeping while you're the successful one, that's fine. I don't need their validation. But if you'd like to have an honest relationship with me going forward, that starts with being honest with them. The board meeting continued for another 2 hours. We restructured governance, implemented new protocols, and established reporting procedures. Derek barely spoke. His colleagues kept glancing at him, then at me, clearly recalculating every assumption they'd made. When the meeting ended, Derek followed me to the parking garage. Maya, wait. I turned. He looked devastated. I'm sorry, he said. I've been such an asshole to you. Yes, I agreed. You have. I thought you were struggling. I thought I was the successful one and you were, stuck. I was never stuck, I said. I was building something you couldn't see because you never looked. You assumed your path was the only valid one. Stanford. Corporate ladder. Impressive title. But Derek, I built a $340 million investment firm from nothing. I did it without Dad's money, without family connections, without anyone's help except people who saw my actual talent. Why didn't you tell me? Because you never asked, I repeated. And honestly, I didn't need you to know. I was doing fine without your approval or Dad's pride or Mom's recognition. I built my success quietly because I didn't need an audience. You did. That's the difference between us. He nodded slowly, tears forming. What happens at the next family dinner? That's up to you, I said. You can tell them the truth or you can keep pretending. But Derek, if you keep positioning me as a failure, understand that I'm the one who controls your career now. I'm not threatening you, I'm just stating facts. Your professional reputation is tied to a company I own. He flinched. That sounds like a threat. It's reality, I said. I'm not going to sabotage you. But I'm also not going to stay silent while you build your ego by tearing down mine. My phone rang. Marcus. The board members are already calling their networks, he said. Word spreading fast. You're going to get interview requests. Derek heard this. Interview requests? Business media loves this narrative, Marcus continued. Young female investor quietly acquires controlling stake in mid-sized tech firm. Very hidden genius angle. Forbes already called. I hung up and looked at Derek. So yes, the truth is coming out whether you tell Mom and Dad or not. Your colleagues know. The board knows. Soon the industry will know. You can control the family narrative, or you can let them find out from a business article. He stood there silently for a long moment. I'll tell them, he finally said. Tonight. Family dinner. I'll tell them everything. Family dinner that night was the most satisfying 3 hours of my life. Derek asked everyone to come. Mom, Dad, our aunt and uncle, our cousins. The same audience who'd watched him mock me at Mom's birthday party. I need to tell you all something about Maya, Derek started, his voice shaking slightly. Mom smiled. Oh, is she finally getting a real job? No, Derek said firmly. She has a real job. She's had one for 6 years. She's the founder and managing partner of Chen Capital Ventures, a $340 million investment firm. The room went silent. She also, as of 8 months ago, became the majority shareholder of Apex Solutions. My company. She owns 73% of it. Dad's fork dropped. Yesterday, Derek continued, I stood at Mom's party and mocked her in front of my board members. I called her career a fantasy. I laughed at her LinkedIn profile. Today, I sat in a board meeting and watched her restructure my company's governance because she has the controlling vote to do so. Mom looked at me confused. Is this a joke? No, I said calmly. It's not. Derek's telling you the truth. I've been working in private equity and venture capital since I was 23. I've been a partner in Marcus Chen's investment firm for 5 years. I manage a substantial portfolio, and Apex Solutions is my largest holding. I pulled out my phone and showed them the Forbes article. My photo, professional and confident, with the headline, Emerging Fund Managers, the New Generation of Investment Talent. Dad read it slowly. This says you've generated 340% returns over 5 years. Correct. And you own Derek's company? Controlling interest, yes. Mom looked between us. But you live in that tiny apartment. You drive that old car. You wear. I live below my means, I said simply. I invest my profits rather than spending them on appearances. Unlike Derek, I didn't need a luxury condo to feel successful. Derek winced but didn't argue. Our aunt spoke up. Why didn't you tell us? Because none of you asked, I said. For 6 years, every family gathering has been about Derek's achievements. His promotions, his salary, his success. Anytime I mentioned my work, I was dismissed or ignored. So I stopped mentioning it. You let us think you were struggling, Mom protested. No, I corrected. You assumed I was struggling because my success didn't look like Derek's. I never lied. I told you I worked in investment management. I told you I had clients and partnerships. You chose not to believe that was significant. The silence stretched. Finally, Dad spoke. We owe you an apology. You owe me more than that, I said quietly. You owe me the college fund you spent on Derek's condo. You owe me the respect you never gave my career. You owe me the acknowledgement that your daughter built something extraordinary without any help from you. Dad's face fell. The college fund. God, Maya, I'm so sorry. I don't need your apology, I said. I already succeeded. I built my firm, bought my brother's company, and earned my place in my industry. I did it without you. I'm telling you this now not because I need your validation, but because Derek deserves to stop pretending, and I deserve to stop being invisible. Mom was crying. We're so proud of you. How you are, I said. But you weren't when it mattered. Derek stood up. Maya's right. We treated her like she was failing when she was actually building an empire. I spent years mocking her, and she spent those same years becoming successful enough to control my entire career. She won. Completely. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine respect. I don't need to win, Derek, I said softly. I just needed you to see me. 3 months later, Chen Capital Ventures closed a $200 million fund focused on emerging tech companies. I was profiled in Fortune, Forbes, and Business Insider. Derek sent me every article with a simple message. Proud of you, sis. Apex Solutions thrived under the new governance structure. Derek remained COO, and surprisingly, we developed an actual working relationship. He consulted me on major decisions, and I provided strategic guidance when requested. Mom and Dad tried to overcompensate, suddenly bragging about my achievements to anyone who'd listen. I let them. Their validation didn't matter anymore, but their recognition did. Not for me, but for every other daughter they might meet who was building something quietly without an audience. The college fund issue was resolved when I discovered Dad had taken a second mortgage to make it right. I bought the mortgage from the bank, forgave the debt, and told him to donate the equivalent amount to scholarships for women in business. You can't erase the past, I told him. But you can fund someone else's future. Last month, I bought out Marcus's stake in Apex Solutions. I now own 73% outright. The majority shareholder, the controlling vote, the quiet power behind a $200 million company. Derek still sues. He's good at his job. And now, finally, he knows exactly who I am. Not his little sister playing Sue. His boss.